can the machine from the hit indie game Ultrakill survive or even win against some of the different kind of Warhammer armies that exist in the Warhammer 40k verse? Well, in this video I will examine V1 and then some of the armies and see if the robot will ultra kill them or be ultra destroyed. So let's begin with the robot machine that you play as in-game. Starting off with the arsenal, V1 has a bunch of guns and they do different things. The less destructive guns are still powerful as they can damage and destroy armored robots without issue, with just their primary fire. Using the secondary fire you can annihilate bigger robots without much difficulty. The larger guns that V1 has are stronger and more destructive, as they fire bigger bullets or a bunch of smaller bullets, and they typically have alternate firing modes that can be chained together to do quite a bit of damage. The strongest weaponry of V1 can completely melt the health of bosses and can reach destructive levels that can obliterate cities or even large landmasses. Now, V1's most strongest attack is throwing a bar of soap, as it does the max damage possible. For V1's most destructive attacks, including the soap, he can chain his arsenal to potentially reach levels of destruction that could possibly take out a considerable part of a moon if all variables are ideal. Other parts of V1's arsenal are his different arms. Got the blue arm that parries most attacks and also heals V1 after each parry. You got the red arm that creates a concussive blast that pushes all projectiles and enemies away. And you got the green arm that grapples. V1 in the game is also quite fast, as in gameplay many have likened his speed to being hypersonic when just running around, as his speed is similar to many of the in-game bullets, which move that fast. V1 can also use other movement techniques to temporarily boost his speed, as seen with the in-game mechanics, with him even being able to dodge light-based attacks with the dash feature. For durability, V1 is stated to have light armor plating in order to absorb the blood for refueling and healing, but he is able to get hit a couple of times with attacks that are comparatively powerful to his own, as seen with V2, the Prime Souls, the Corpse, and the Archangel. V1 also has some decent perception, as he can sense some incoming attacks even without looking at them, and he can see things that are moving at the speed of light. Now, if something moves too fast, then it will appear to be teleporting to V1, but he can still somewhat keep up and dodge, given that it's not too much faster than what V1 can perceive. So now let's examine some Warhammer armies and compare them to V1. But first, please subscribe, hype, and like the video, as it helps the videos do well so I can continue creating more. Now, since there are several armies and several different races, I will only choose a couple for this video, as yeah, I could probably do a couple videos just examining the different factions, since there is a lot to the Warhammer lore. So let's begin with the Tyranids. This Warhammer army is comprised of several insectoid Xenos, with the single-minded approach of consume, conquer, and propagate. They go through the galaxy consuming organic matter to increase their biomass and evolve to become more deadly, to then be able to consume and propagate more. Every single member of the Tyranids all share a hive mind, which allows them to organize and conspire at large scale in mere moments. And within their perception, any living thing, no matter how weak or strong, is prey. Their preferred attack strategy is to overwhelm with numbers. If their numbers get cut down, then they have the Norm Queens, which produces many more of them. And since they are a varied species, explaining every single Tyranid would be enough for a video on its own, so in essence, the weakest Tyranids can take out a battalion of modern-day army men with ease, and the stronger, bigger Tyranids can take down towns and survive a lot of modern-day ordnance with little issue. And most of them move at surprising speeds, with most being able to keep up with cars. So does V1 ultra kill the Tyranids, or would the robot be ultra killed by them? Well, let's see. For the weaker Tyranids, V1 can take out several hordes without much issue. He is able to easily dodge and move around several hordes of the smaller creatures, and the medium-sized Tyranids would take more shots, but they could be taken down with the same ease as many ultra kill enemies. The issue starts to come with the larger enemies, and when V1 is overwhelmed. This is because the Tyranid Ichor, which is their blood, may not be viable for V1 to use for healing or fueling. V1 can still heal with parries, but would start to run out of fuel, making it more difficult to continue dodging and operating. The other issue is that there are way too many Tyranids, and they could overrun any terrain that V1 would be on, getting to a point where the ground is more Tyranid than ground. V1 would only be able to win if somehow it can use the acidic ichor of Tyranids for fuel and healing. And V1 would have to target all of the Norm Queens to stop the legions of Tyranids from getting reinforcements to actually win, as the robot would have to continually fight for several years just to put a small dent in the Tyranid population. Now let's move on to the Orcs. These green fellows are interesting as they are a mix of both animal and fungal characteristics, which form a powerful and combat-focused creature. These fellows are also quite numerous as they are second to the Tyranids in numbers, at least from what I've read. They are characterized by being simple yet still quite powerful and advanced enough to keep up with the other Warhammer armies like the humans. Now, due to wanting battle and nothing more, they are very ready to fight and their civilizations all reflect that. Their main power comes from their numbers, as more orcs means more boys for fighting, and when many orcs congregate and believe something, it starts to happen and manifest, due to low levels of psychic and reality warping power. This also works for engineering, as if many orcs believe that hitting a piece of metal with some wood can create a powerful gun, then it will happen. The main issue with this is that the orcs are not really known to unify, as they also like fighting each other. Now, if they were to all unify, then they would be an incredibly powerful force in the Warhammerverse. Now, within the orcs, you have the more normal orcs, which are still superhumanly powerful without any gear, and you got the big war bosses, which are similarly as strong as some of the bigger Tyranids, but with more varied equipment. The orcs also have several different war machines and flying vehicles, which they love to use. So how does V1 do against the orcs? Well, let's see. For the smaller orc boys, V1 would have no trouble getting through them because the robot is very fast and has equipment more than capable of destroying several orcs. V1 can also do quite well against many of the bigger orc war bosses and some smaller orc vehicles. The real challenge comes from the large orc ships and war vehicles with devastating weaponry. These large orc creations, with the best of orc engineering, would be able to hit V1 hard as they can target fast-moving ships, which move at similar speeds to V1, if not faster. But could V1 use the orc blood to heal and refuel? Well, surprisingly yes, but not too well. I say this because orcs have blood that is fungal and animalistic traits, along with some plant traits as well and other strange stuff to their biology. But this makes orc blood similar enough to the blood of Ultrakill enemies, but it won't heal or fuel V1 as well, so V1 would have to get a lot more orc blood to get the same refueling for less blood than he normally would in the game. So because of this fact, V1 still has a good chance to actually fight several hordes of orcs and win, potentially being able to thrive in a battle against the orcs, as he can constantly heal from their most devastating attacks and keep the fight going for a very long time. Now let's move on to the humans. Now these super soldier guys called the Adeptus Astartes are on the cover for most Warhammer stuff and are arguably the most recognizable characters from the 40k verse. Now even among just the Adeptus Astartes there are several different types and also chapters of the different types. So for this video I'm going with the Loyalist chapter that is on the box art of the Space Marine games, which is the Ultramarine chapter. Now these kind of blue fellows are very strong. Their strength in the suits reaches levels where they can throw boulders with ease, they can carry thousands of pounds and run around without much issue. For their speed, they can run similarly as fast as the Tyranids and Orcs, which again is similar to a fast-moving car, and they're also quite agile in their suits, being able to quickly dodge out of the way of even projectiles. They are also able to take quite a hit as their armor is very dense and robust, and equipped with an energy shield. This allows them to tank heavy artillery without denting their armor. Now, the shield has a limit before it disengages and has to recharge, in which case the armor can be dented and damaged along with the superhuman inside the armor. Other notes about the Ultramarines is that with several of their physiological and suit-based enhancements, their perception is greatly increased, allowing them to perceive and process information at similar speeds to computers. And they also have a couple hundred standard years of experience, making each soldier a battle-intelligent machine of a human. Now moving on with their arsenal, it packs quite a punch as even the smaller bolters can penetrate and destroy highly armored modern vehicles. The larger and stronger weapons, like this beam rifle powerful, can incinerate most things with just a shot. They are also equipped with powerful melee weapons with similar destructive capabilities as their firearms. So how does the machine do against the Ultramarines? Well, for the normal soldier, V1 is able to take on several of them, as V1 takes out several similarly powerful enemies like the Gutter Tank quite easily throughout the game. For stronger Ultramarines that far exceed the previously mentioned feats, V1 still is able to win as its speed and more destructive weapons still give it the edge. Now for the strongest of the chapter, it starts to be somewhat of an issue as they start to approach the capabilities and stats of V1. But the healing from parrying and the very fast speeds of V1 still give it the advantage, while the low numbers of the Ultramarines and their high quality blood make it so they have to rely more so on their vehicles and machines to actually fight V1, since they have better targeting on fast moving objects and their machines don't contain blood, which V1 can take advantage of. So in conclusion, V1 is surprisingly able to handle at least some of the many races and armies of the Warhammer verse, as it can use their large numbers against them since V1 heals with their blood. Some Xenos like the Tyranids and other creatures without blood that V1 can use would be easily able to take out V1, as their large numbers will overwhelm the robot, as it loses its ability to operate due to not having any access to good blood. Now, for some of the stronger singular characters or races, they would win since they are just that powerful, and they exceed what V1 is capable of, even if the robot has access to blood.